I'm Jacques Spitzer. This is how you sell without selling out. Rogers that.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rogers Healy, and welcome to Rogers That, a podcast dedicated to selling without selling out. And today we have someone who has literally been the Wizard of Oz, the angel to Charlie, or maybe Charlie to the angels. He's the orchestrator. He's the guy behind the steel curtain. He's also the guy in front of the steel curtain. He is a winner across all boards. And I think that in life, everyone has a superpower. And a lot of y'all might know what yours is, but my buddy Jacques Spitzer, who's on the show today, his superpower is edifying leaders and giving them the ability to go and sell whatever it is they're selling, as long as they're not selling out. Some fun facts. I'm going to reference some notes here. He is a 4-time Emmy Award winner. He is a speaker. He is an author. He was named one of California's most visionary CEOs. Is the CEO of a company called Raindrop, which we're going to get to. I met him through another podcast guest, a great founder guy named Ian Blair. But above all that, Jacques is a good dude. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. He loves his friends well. And I think that he is unfortunately a unicorn in his industry, because I know that at the end of the day, he wants what's best for his friends and his clients, which is the reason a lot of his clients are his friends. And so with all that being said, my friend Jacques is on the show today. I can't see him because I'm having technical difficulties. So I'm just picturing him.
You know what? I'm here though, and I'm always here in spirit and in presence in your life. Anytime you use a product that brings you joy, you just think of me, because I may have helped sell it. You never know.
Wow. So Jacques got his start. He created a hemorrhoid cream because he had issues, and he's like, I need to go and create a better for you hemorrhoid cream. And here we are now.
It's one of the little things that people don't really know about me is just how big those hemorrhoids were and how much that just set my entire agency in the direction it went today. So thank you for bringing up just how deep my background goes when it comes to marketing.
Well, that's how we met. He wanted to go and put me as the brand behind it, Healy's Hemorrhoids. And I was like, man, at this time, I don't think
it would blow up. It would blow up. The further you take this joke, the further I'm going to take it too. All right. We're gonna have a pro forma by the end of the episode.
Let's pivot to the series, even though our series is a different version of serious. But give us a little background. I know you're coming at us live, or not live. You're coming at us this morning live for me, but everyone else, this is not live, from California. And so give us a the elevator of your background and how you're creative and how you've turned that into business and how you've just built this bonfire of brands underneath your vision.
You got it. Well, I'll do my best to tell it, but I'm going to tell it in the way that I think you'll appreciate most. Because, I can tell the story a million different ways, but I'm like, what's the Rogers Healy way? Now, if I had a song to sing with it, I would, but I don't. But I will say that originally the company was called Jacques Productions. And that was a very limiting name considering, it was me and my name. And I loved this quote from C.S. Lewis. It was a quote about friendship. And he was explaining that if we're lucky, once in our life, we meet a friend who comes along, we meet them, they're so effortless, we just click. It's sort of like watching two raindrops come together in a windowsill. Just that effortless, beautiful. And I remember as a kid, like watching raindrops in the windowsill, which was rare in Southern California. And so when I started the business, I was only like 24, 25. And I was thinking, I just want to help people. I want to help their companies. At the time, it was everything from a local restaurant to, a real estate agent, where I think a lot of people might get started in a small business journey. And I knew that I wanted to provide creative services, strategic services that would have that partner feeling like, wow, this person is a raindrop in my life. They're coming alongside of me and helping me grow my company, grow my brand. And, really, if I look back at the last 14 years, it has been a process of someone giving us an opportunity and us taking advantage of that and nailing that opportunity. It starts as early as maybe year 3 or 4 of the business. We got an opportunity with the San Diego Symphony. I know nothing about classical music. And, I was really upfront about that, but they were like, we believe in basically the VP of marketing at the time was like, I believe in what you're doing probably more than you do. And over the next 5 years, we doubled their ticket sales, and we really created a brand for the San Diego Symphony that people across the world were interested in. We had a video that went viral for them. It was just a really cool journey. And so what that taught me early on was, even though I don't know, I'm not the target consumer, it doesn't mean that we can't figure out how to use modern tools and messaging and storytelling that matters to get people excited. And so, same story, we're 7 years into the business. I meet a small company called Dr. Squatch. It's a men's soap company. Yep. At the time, doing $3 million a year in sales. They're like 6, 7 years in the business. You got to ask yourself, how big can a $9 soap company, a $9 bar soap company get to? And we had this big premise at the time. Yeah, he gave us a shot. I remember being on the phone with him. He's like, "Do you have direct to consumer experience?" I was like, "Not yet, but here's all of our other experience and what we've done, and I'd love for you to give us a shot." It wasn't a hard sell. It was just like, "Look, I'll be honest, no." But we went through an entire branding process where we kind of figured out, what are we really selling? Because if we're selling soap, we're dead in the water. I mean, Costco, 30 bars of soap, you can get it for $20. We're selling one bar for $9. We got to sell something different. And so we repositioned the messaging and the brand, more so around making men feel like kings of their shower, and providing a sense of joy. That's really what we're selling when it comes to Dr. Squatch. And over the next 7 years, that brand went from 3 million to we'll just say hundreds of millions. I'm not allowed to say the exact amount, but it's a lot. And we had the opportunity to do a Super Bowl commercial with them. And as part of that, we got other opportunities. We were able to work with Manscaped and Lumi, helped, Shady Rays sunglasses grow by tens of millions of dollars. And that led us to working with Native, and we got into the PNG universe. And Native's now one of the fastest growing brands in history for PNG. And so there's just a lot of exciting things that we've had the opportunity to do. You and I met through Laundry Sauce, which was, we got involved in a little bit more of the venture space. I mean, having made people billions of dollars, at some point you're like, maybe we should offer our services for equity as well, which we can't do all the time. We're very selective, but we believed in the Laundry Sauce team. We believed in what they were doing, which was really redefining what it means to do laundry. It's not just another product. And being part of their success has been just as gratifying as taking a brand from 3 million to hundreds of millions, to be honest, because it's just more intimate. So that's a very long-winded version of the story, but it started with not even gyms. I like to say it started with literally a trainer in a gym. The gyms didn't trust us to do their marketing, and now we're doing some of the biggest campaigns out there. So it's been crazy. It's been crazy.
I love it. And, as a music guy, as you're telling the story, I think one of the most iconic scenes in movie history is in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And it's a movie, if you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful movie. It's not what you'd expect. It's kind of a goofy movie that I think helped turn Paul Newman into a different kind of star. I think Robert Redford too. Anyway, there's a scene in there that it's just this iconic scene. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but in the background, there's a song by a guy named B.J. Thomas. Raindrops keep falling on my head, right? And when you're telling this, and I was like, all right, maybe it's a C.S. Lewis quote, but also I think that we have not had this conversation, but as someone who I think understands marketing not as well as you, but I understand it, the mother of all learning is repetition, right? And if you think about one of the most old school campaigns on earth, it's a drip campaign, right? And
Yep.
it's just
Hey,
awesome.
look at you. Look at you.
Yeah. So you're sharing
It's all that you also just described Chinese water torture, but that's fine.
yeah. Which if this podcast doesn't go well.
Both oddly effective in their own ways.
Yes. So you gave us a glimpse, and again, I think something that you've been able to prove with your team, your vision, et cetera, is it's really not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think that taking these things that, two of the most disruptive brands you've been a part of, it's cleaning products, right? It's laundry detergent, and it's really bar soap. And I think, I don't want to just talk about Laundry Sauce and Dr. Squatch, because
No.
I had my Grunes this morning that you got me hooked on, and there's a lot of other companies that you look for as well. But maybe walk us back a little bit to like your first successful campaign. We can talk about how you've helped, 100x, 1000x sales, which is great. And he says CPG, that just means like stuff, consumer packaged goods. But the first campaign that you had the responsibility of putting together, do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I mean, two come to mind. Two come to mind. The first was the opportunity we got with the San Diego Symphony way back when was really unique because it was a grant project where what they did was they said we're gonna throw free concerts, but we have identified the hardest to reach zip codes in San Diego, right? And so it's like, oh, good luck, because I think one of the things that brands kind of forget at times is that it's hard enough to get someone to buy something, but honestly, in some cases, it's hard to even just give it away, especially if it's not to an audience that tends to want or need what it is that you tend to provide. And what happened was there was a series of 5 concerts. The venues ranged in size from at the smallest level, they were like 500 seats. And then in the larger ones, they're like 1,800 seats. And we achieved 92% capacity
Wow.
with these concerts. And so that's what it was interesting because we did that. And it was such a huge success. I mean, it blew everyone away. It blew me away. I mean, because you don't even know when you're giving away something for free, you get RSVPs, but you don't know if people are going to show up. You know, it's like, great, I got an RSVP, but you haven't committed any money. And so, seeing I mean, I'll put it bluntly, the hall tends to be filled with old white people. And so to be at these venues where 90+% of people are non-white we're having the concerts in zip codes that are literally identified as the hardest to reach in San Diego. I think it just showed me, one, what's possible, and two, gave me confidence in what we could do. Um, and so then going with what happened with San Diego Symphony was like, hey, which I don't tell the story very often. It's kind of like it kind of gets hidden, because of all the other successes that like are more out there. But like, this is like, but when you believe in yourself, then all the other challenges seem pretty easy, right? When you do something hard, they seem easy. And the other thing is, we also won an Emmy for a local car wash campaign. And so, you know, that was one where we had this idea that in San Diego, in this region, there's a car wash that's pretty big. I think they have like 20 locations now, called Soapy Joe's. And everyone has their little tag in the window. And so we made this whole campaign around sort of starting with like what is now, or people know as the Jeep Wave. I didn't know about the Jeep Wave at the time, but the idea that like game recognized game, like I see that you go to Soapy Joe's. So we made this campaign, and it really resonated with people. And it wasn't expensive, right? I mean, I think the whole thing was like 20-25 grand at the time. This is over a decade ago. So it wasn't about the production quality. It was just about the creativity and the thinking. And so when you make, San Diego Symphony cool, and you make a car wash cool, when you actually work with something cool, it feels a lot easier. And so I think that, I think that was sort of the reality of just the process of learning. So yeah, it has been a tremendous journey and a lot of learning.
So back to a marketing question. I heard something a long time ago that said, what the opposite of great is? It's good, right? It's not bad,
Mm,
it's good. And so I
yeah.
tell you this, where in your mind, as the Pied Piper of branding and marketing and kind of vision casting, what separates a good brand from a great brand?
Man, what separates a good brand from a great brand? I think fundamentally, it comes down to focus and this focus, it permeates their advertising, it permeates their product, it permeates everything that a company does. So I'll give it from a marketing angle, but I think you could see where this would infuse its way into everything. I would say if I know immediately when a brand approaches us, especially if it's like an RFP situation, which means request for proposal, one of the biggest red flags for me is they approach their marketing and their campaign with, this is what I want people to know about us. This is what I want them to take away. This is what I want to say. Right. Um, and so imagine, Rogers, if you came to this podcast to have this conversation with me and that was your goal. What am I going to say on this? What am I going to do? Like, brands do that. They're like, oh, this is what people need to know. And it's a fundamental flaw in the way of thinking. Great brands start with, what do people want to hear? What do people actually want to watch? What do people actually want to listen to? And then they reverse engineer that to say, how does my message fit into that? And that is, it's such a fundamental shift that it changes everything.
Okay, now I've got fanboy questions, and it's the playoff that most well executed advertising. Like what company that's not a Raindrop client yet? I always refer to Chick-fil-A, and the fact that they brought a cow in as their spokesmodel is was crazy, right? I know that there's like the Old Spice people, how they disrupted the industry and brought it tongue in cheek, et cetera, and a soap agent and a soap company. What is the most effective? What company runs their advertising as effective as any company you've ever seen? Apple. I mean, don't give us the cliche Apple or Old Spice or whatever, but in your mind, who is one of the front runners?
Man, that's a good question. Like, who? I would say Geico. I think Geico literally changed how insurance companies advertise. I think the work that the Martin Agency has done on that has been prolific. And I would argue, and this is what's interesting, is I think people look at something like a Nike or something like a, you know, and I think Nike, obviously, I mean, come on, like, it's got to be in there, right? They really leaned into, yeah, they really leaned into brand and expanded so far beyond sort of a core audience or a core product to become just ubiquitous. Um, in terms of like brands right now that we're not involved with, that's a good question. Um, I mean, Liquid Death is one that comes to mind quite a bit. I think, yeah, look at you. Yeah, I'm like literally naming brands and you're just pulling them onto screen. Because in general, they've found a way to carve out an attitude and a feeling around water. One of my favorite questions I get from potential clients is like, well, I know you did it with this, this, and this, and this, but like, can branding and like advertising really work for us? I'm like, it works for water. Like, what other commodity is more basic? And so, it's just, that's like kind of a funny limiting belief. But I think Liquid Death is doing a great job. And I think what's funny is I would say I like half of Liquid Death stuff. But the fact that they're even going there and putting themselves out there that's just like the name of the game. I mean, I could keep naming companies. I feel that way about Laundry Sauce. I think they just keep taking big swings, and when they connect, it's exciting. Like, they're willing to throw the 40-yard pass, and when it connects, you get 40 yards.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I love that.
So here's my next question. Again, these were not in the prep questions, but you got my mind thinking on the creative side. What company are you so surprised that you don't click with their advertising, but it still works and it's mind blowing to you, right? Like maybe some people would say Geico, right? Some people would say Liquid Death, but I think Liquid Death and Laundry Sauce maybe live in the extreme where you're like, oh God, all right, Rockstar Water or 69
Yeah, I know what
Laundry
you mean.
Pods. But
Yeah.
what?
Well, before I answer that second question, I want to make this point because I think it's interesting. We recently worked with did great work for licorice.com and pretzels.com. And I was talking to one of the founders of that, and he was saying what they underestimated about licorice.com was that licorice is so polarizing that in general, people either love it or they hate it. And even when they hate it and they leave negative comments, it still fuels the fire. They feel something towards it. He's like, then we launched pretzels and we're like, well, everyone loves pretzels, and pretzels didn't do as well. Like, you would think it would, but it just didn't, you know? And so they ended up coming out with crazy flavors, which then made it more divisive and it started to work. But I think in general, there's that. So I would say the one brand that it's um, and you're going to be like, wait, what? It's not even a marketing thing. It's just Texas Roadhouse, the actual, location. I've been to two recently. Someone wanted to get dinner there or whatever, and it was so packed. And I kept thinking to myself, this is crazy because it's just the new version of Outback Steakhouse or the new version of Sizzler. It's the same concept, just repackaged every 10 to 20 years. And I think in general, I find the psychology and the role of, um, what am I looking for? Like chain type restaurants, very interesting. Like people know Starbucks doesn't have the best coffee, but they crush. Like people know that, McDonald's doesn't have the best burger, but they crush. And I say all this to say, like, I find that more interesting that when people go towards a brand that's safe and mediocre over and over and over again. I just find that really fascinating, especially when there's other options out there.
Which is a great lead into the next question, which you hopefully are prepared for. What's the one thing you see in common between all the brands that you work with?
Damn, Rogers. You didn't tell me to stretch before this podcast. I'm
No, it's
worried
it's,
I'm going
it's
to pull something. No,
well,
I'm kidding.
this proves how creative your brain is and how quickly you
The
can.
one thing that they have in common, um, good math. That was
Good what?
not good math. So that was
I,
not the
I,
answer you're
I
expecting.
literally, it broke up again. I'm not good math.
Good math. Yes.
Math.
Math. They have good math.
All right,
What I
you got to
mean by
expand.
that, yeah, what I mean by that is we see so many brands that come to us and they have product market fit, but they are completely choked by their margins. There was a baby brand we were working with and they came to us and they're like, oh yeah, like we have 50-50 margins, like 50% hard cost, 50% we can use for other things. I'm like, you will get suffocated. You will die. Like those margins do not work. The only way that low margins work, I think in this day and age, is if you are fully at retail velocity and being picked up off the shelves super quickly. But, you have to have enough margin in order to advertise, in order to win. And so when I look at like Athletic Greens or, who, by the way, I think you had asked earlier about brands that we don't work with, but I think is doing great. I think Athletic Greens is crushing, right? I think that would be fair to say. Um, I think that right now, more than ever, because of how many different ways there are to sell something, people with good math, meaning anywhere between, you know, the actual product hard cost is 20 to 25% tops of their actual product. It gives them the actual ability to market. You can have the best product in the world. There's a lot of amazing products out there that just never grow and they die on the vine because they don't have enough oxygen. They don't have enough margin or room. And so, the reason that Dr. Squatch worked was at the bar, they charged $9 for the bar. If they chose $7 for the bar, that company would have never made it past $4 million in sales. It's that simple. Like, great advertising is one thing, but if like you can't spend money to market or acquire people, you're going to die. And so that's the thing. I mean, you're a VC. Like you look at the math, immediately like this is good math, that's bad math. And I think that's something that we get 300 plus inquiries a month to work with us,
Wow.
inbound. And
Wow.
and so that gives us a purview into a lot of, we don't talk to all those people, but it gives us a purview into what's working, what's not. And that's why when a company is doing $50 million, but they're selling like custom home signs, like a CNC sign, and I'm like, oh yeah, those are 95% margins, of course. Or like the people that sell, you upload a photo of yourself and they custom print it and ship it to you and it's 90% margins. And they come to us and they're like, yeah, I'm doing $60 million. I'm like, I'm not surprised because you have money. You can spend a lot at SaaS companies. You get the point. It's math. It's math more than advertising. Um, you can't outwork bad math.
So it's funny because this is not necessarily a question, but so my first VC investment was Mizzen in Maine 12, 13 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. and I'm deathly loyal to the founder, to the company. If I had on normal clothes, I'd have them on right now, or a Snap shirt. But very randomly, I don't know if you follow them on social media, but 3 weeks ago they went viral. And it's a men's clothing company. It's a dry fit dress shirt. If you saw this, long story short, the creative director literally does like this little internal podcast, and he was having a conversation about literal math. And
Mm,
this 25 million views later, 50,000 more followers. It was so funny, and again, it has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but everything to do with what you're talking about. The power that had was crazy, and that actually helped increase their margins as well because they acquired customers for literal nothing. So
yep.
again, I'm sure that can be interpreted across the board. And something that I think for you guys that are paying attention to today as well, that's important is that Jacques, he led with some kind of sexy companies, Dr. Squatch, Laundry Sauce, these companies that are well known, but he didn't say he's not afraid of working with a sign company or with a printing company because it's about the margins, and he can go and help tell the story through Raindrop, which I think is what kind of led me into real estate initially. Is that people are like, you can't go brand yourself. It's like, why not? Why not put a personality
Yeah.
behind it? And I think that's really what you guys do well, is that you help people,
Yeah,
identify
I
their.
mean, it's a great point. I think one of my favorite brands we're working with right now is City Post, and what they do is you can go online and order um, cable railing for your deck, and they're crushing it, right? And it's so fun. I mean, the advertising we made for them is so fun. It entertains. It takes you through the installation, but the bottom line is like they can they have better margins, they can sell at a better price, and they're a better product. And so it's like it's a trifecta. And to your point, like, is cable railing sexy? To some, it is. I mean, I'd argue that it's installed. It's sexy. I have no interest in putting them in, but yeah, I mean, 100%. It doesn't have to be sexy. It's sexy to someone.
So
Just
here's
like
a,
just like you and me, Rogers. We're sexy to someone. Our
so,
wives.
and that one person is married to me, and that other person is married to you. Thank God.
Thank
So
God.
here's another off topic or off list question. What industry, and again, this is going to be one that you might have an answer to quickly, or it might be version two. Laundry detergent, soap, water, insurance, all these industries have been disrupted with marketing. What hasn't been disrupted yet? Right? I tell people that real estate has never been Netflixed. It hasn't been Travelocity, right? You think about these industries, like my first job was Blockbuster Video. There's a reason there's no more Blockbusters. There's one still standing, and it's literally like a tourist attraction. Travel agencies really are a thing of the past unless it's just super high end for a safari or something. Laundry detergent, soap, water, all these things. What have you not seen yet be disrupted? What kind of product, what kind of service, and would you put the Raindrop brand behind it if someone came to you, maybe through this podcast, that has the next rubber band, the next zipper, the next whatever it is?
So here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. Um, I don't have look, if I had to your point, if I had a golden vision around what hasn't been disrupted yet, yeah, I would be very focused on that. I will say I'll list off some things that I think are very interesting. I think that um, the quick service restaurant space integrating. Adam and I have been joking about for a decade, robotic Chipotle, because like at the end of the day, you're getting Chipotle, and the fact that a human being is making it, like, no offense to Chipotle, but like that's not the magic of Chipotle. And so I'm like, yeah, I mean, if they could shave a buck or two off the price and have basically the same product, could someone come through and just knock off a Chipotle and crush them? Yeah, I mean, I'm not paying an extra $3 for Chipotle if it tastes the same. And is highly, I don't know what you'd call it, roboticized. I also just think that obviously we're on I mean, without going down a rabbit hole, AI is going to be super disruptive. That's less of like a marketing thing. If you're saying, like, if the question is more so what isn't being marketed well, um, I would just say if I knew the answer to that, I'd already be doing it. However, I will say with something like a laundry sauce, I want to give a sense of why did I jump all over laundry sauce, right? Um, and as background, I mean, they'd already paid us, and we asked if we could return their money and invest instead, which is the first time and only time that's ever happened. Was I recognized this pattern with what they were really selling. They are not selling laundry detergent. They're selling joy in a mundane task. That's what Dr. Squatch sells. Joy in a mundane task. You don't feel any joy from your Dove soap. You don't feel any joy from your Irish Spring. Like, you probably don't really feel that much joy from Old Spice. You just don't feel joy. I would argue you don't feel that much joy from Duke Cannon, even though the bar is twice the size and probably half the cost. Um, we're selling joy, and with laundry sauce, that was what got me excited. Was I'm like, no one really loves doing the laundry. It is a chore. There's aspects of it you might like, but when you add their product into the experience, it transforms things. And I was talking to my 72-year-old mother-in-law. The reason I'd say her name or say her age is just I just need to tee this up. Like, someone who's been doing laundry her whole life. And when I saw her during Thanksgiving, she said, Jacques, of all the brands that you've ever worked with, my favorite is laundry sauce because it's like a treat. It just makes me so happy and I don't really know why. And she's literally saying back to me all the things that I thought could be possible with this brand for them. And
Is she also doing your laundry?
no, she was not at the time. No. But she sent me the sweetest video the other day. After she told me how much she loved it, I sent her the new Indonesian patchouli scent. But I say all that to say that to me is disruption, not because you're not disrupting a chore in the sense of like, oh, it's just a new product. It's a new experience. And I think that, on the flip side, like everything else is technology based. I'm not going to claim that I'm a technology expert. I'm actually going to reverse the question to you, Rogers. What do you believe is like kind of prime for disruption right now when it comes to either using marketing or just being disruptive?
Man, I struggle with this. And I think that eventually, I don't really talk about this publicly, but being in the venture space, our job is to invest in people and kind of bet on the horse and the jockey. But eventually, after I do this long enough, there's certain things, right? I have found that in business, not maybe the easiest way to make money, however you define easy, is to create a convenience, right? So I start a real estate company,
Mm-hmm.
I start these other offshoots, and it's essentially doing the work that no one else wanted to do. But I find myself in high school, I was voted biggest complainer, which probably no one's
Is
surprised
that is
about.
that real or did you make that up?
No, I really was, and I
It has
got
to be
biggest
real because I don't know how you can make it up otherwise.
biggest kid, adult body, biggest complainer, most likely to live at home, most likely to return as a substitute, but also most fun to have class with. Um, but I tell you this to where I'm very very peculiar in particular with like my clothes, right? With what I wear, and if I find something, if I find a pair of shoes I like, I buy every single color they have because I'm afraid that they're gonna sell out. But every once in a while, there's stuff like jeans, and I think as a bigger guy, like jeans and hats and socks and these things that you just kind of get used to being uncomfortable. Maybe one day I disrupt that industry, and I take some of my winnings and do it. But as of now, there's not one thing I can think of. But again, I usually surround myself during the day with stuff that I'm invested in. So, like, I use laundry sauce as my detergent. I use
Yep,
liquid death as my water. Waterloo is my sparkling water. Siempre is my tequila. And I think that,
that's right.
you know,
You inject that goat fuel into your veins.
100%. But I'm saying there's so much benefit to that because you become such a champion for the brand, but it also sometimes eliminates the discovery phase of seeing what else is out there. And so maybe
Mm,
that's part two of this conversation. But again, it just goes to show it's like, oh my God, someone disrupted water, right?
yep,
At what point do you have to do it? And I think as two creatives that happen to own a business, for me, like with Waterloo, this is a great company. We're so blessed to be a part of it. But maybe like level two of my investing career is like, how do I go disrupt the tab, right? It's like maybe it's not necessarily something that's like sexy in a product, but it's a functional use thing. And I think that's what's going to be fun is maybe there's not an advertising campaign that goes around it, but maybe there is. And
yep,
I think that's where, maybe a different kind of money is made. But that was just a selfish question I have, and I know we're kind of reaching that point where I got to land the plane. So I got two more questions I have to ask you, and I want to make sure everyone hears this. But the first is just entrepreneur to entrepreneur, founder to founder, leader to leader. What's the biggest challenge you have faced so far in your industry and in your journey of being the owner of Raindrop?
I'll get vulnerable for a second with you here. I'm like, when someone asks you that question and you're like, like there's so many different ways to answer it. I would say I started, because think of it this way, I started the business to do good work and help people. I didn't start it to have 100 employees. I didn't start it to do the things it's become, right? Um, and so I think understanding, we call it big P, little p now internally, but understanding how to build an organization when you care so deeply about people. And sometimes, if people are in the wrong role, it's not good for them or the team. It's not good for anyone. We've had points in time where we've run, at a loss for a couple months, right? Kind of carrying payroll, just being like, okay, well, I believe in our future and our team. And what ends up happening is those things have always, unfortunately, had some sort of backfiring to them. In the case of having someone in the wrong seat for too long, ultimately, if they don't go, someone else decides to go, right? Because they're frustrated with that situation and everything else. And usually it's not like we're not removing someone because they're not nice, because like they're the nicest people in the world. And then, learning that if the business isn't healthy, we went through a period of time where we had maybe 5 to 7 team members too many for probably like 6 months. And what I realized was that, okay, well, then when it was time to give raises and time to invest into our future, well, we, you know, had spent a lot of our free cash instead of saving it, trying to keep an extra. I just, the idea of laying off anyone is so painful as an entrepreneur,
It
because you
sucks.
care so much. But I realized like we are accidentally punishing everyone else by doing that, and that, so just understanding that your love and intentions can also make things messy and ultimately not be good for the business is a hard thing to navigate. I would say that's been my biggest challenge as a leader, and I have not arrived by any means. But 14 years in, I'm like, yeah, I care about everybody. I appreciate that they're willing to believe in us and invest time and energy into it. And but when we failed, it's like, well, those are failures that stick with you.
Mm. Preach, man. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Easier said than done. Um, it's hard, man. There's a fine line between being a great leader and being a great boss, and then doing that with a heart. It sucks. I'm right there with you. There's nothing more cringy than just being like, oh, I just have this is not going to work out, and I've got to figure out a way to
Yeah.
lead well. And yeah, so that's a lot. We're not ending it on that though. We're going to end
Yeah,
it
I
on
was like, wow. I mean, you're like, so what's the biggest failure? And I'm like, oh God.
no. I think it's again that and the theme with all this. I started doing these a few years back just because I'm fans of my friends and I'm fans of the ones that have done it the right way. And you're a relatively new friend, but I clicked with you immediately, and I think it's because we
One
have the
could
same.
say we're like raindrops, Rogers.
Yes, we are. We are, and I think that's just unfortunately kind of rare when you click with someone, whether you work with them or not. That's just part of the blessing of networking. So my last question is this: legacy, which is a big word, it's a bold word. When you think about the company that you're running and the life that you're living, and you look back and you're in a different phase, and you think about all the impact you made. How would you sum that up in maybe one or two sentences?
Um, how would I hope that my legacy would be left? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Um, it's a good question. I think at the end of the day, I am enjoying growing people and things. You said selling. Was it selling without selling? Something like that.
Like, I mean,
I think,
how to find here? It could be
yeah,
reworded. Success can make you a better person, right? You don't have to be a punk just because you're making money and you're getting recognition. And I feel like in
right.
San Diego and Dallas and other cities, like they just expect you to turn into this toxic POS, which that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that, to your point, there's so many ways to win. And I think for me right now, I can genuinely say I like everyone that I work with and everyone on the team. And I've pretty much been able to say that throughout the course of the business. And I think that's part of the good fortune of having founded it and having say in all of that. Um, and so when I want to look back on the journey and say, you know, I did it well. I did my best. I loved to the best of my ability, and along the way created joy for people, whether it's through their advertising, the growth of their business, the individual growth of our team members creatively. I mean, what we do is literally making magic. I mean, we get to storytell and create advertising that people genuinely love and respond to, and I love doing that. I love the feeling of it's just like a musician, I'm sure, making a song and having people respond to it. That's how I feel about the advertising we do.
I actually have one more question because and I'm not a fan of this movie, even though I think the theme of it is great. It was just very unnecessary for most parts. Have you seen Wolf of Wall Street?
I have, yeah.
So you know the iconic scene that says, "Sell me this pen."
Yeah.
Right. Here's
Yeah.
the last question: Sell me Jacques Spitzer.
you know, that's funny. I would say sell me Jacques Spitzer. I would say I genuinely try to live to inspire. I try to live to spark joy and creativity in people around me. And that's not something I just do professionally. That's just who I am. And I think that, if someone were to go work with us, I'm more interested in, can we create sparks together? If they're like, I have a bunch of money, but I'm going to be an asshole, I'm like, keep your money. I want to work with people who genuinely bring joy to every day and to every challenge. And that's who I am. And that's who we work with. And that's why we're successful at the end of the day.
I'd like to buy 2 Jacques Spitzers, please.
You know what? I'm not for sale. And
Just
always
double.
have a wait list. No, it's kidding.
Oh man, well this was
Oh
awesome.
man. Hey,
47
thanks for
minutes.
having me. This is I've always wanted to be on Rogers That as as someone who's enjoyed episodes. The one you did with Sarah was one of my favorites, with
Oh,
Scout and
thanks, man.
Cellar. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
she's
awesome.
impressive.
She's a rock star. She's and again a disruptor, former attorney turned entrepreneur, taking her legal background, but not afraid to go out and disrupt a very
Yep.
old industry, wine.
Yep.
So, man, I'm grateful to be your friend. We're gonna mail you a gift because we're not able to do it in person. But thank you, and thanks for your story.